still sitting here with a P01. There's another thing that can happen when you put a pro package in the gun that you may not notice. It's really difficult, but if you look, I'm going to move this so that you have a little bit better background to look at it. If you look at this in single action, when I pull the trigger, if you can see, the back of that screw is really close to the frame. As the trigger, as the gun fires, it just barely touches the back of the frame there. That trigger position should be about the same in double action, but you'll notice if I pull this trigger really slow, I was able to make it drop it to half cock. The hammer didn't drop all the way, and you can see that the gap, I hope y'all can see this on the camera, that the distance from the back of that screw to the frame is quite significantly more than in single action brake. And that's because there's a timing issue in this gun that is allowing the double action to fall too soon. And so if I pull the trigger like I normally would, I don't even notice it. But if I pull the trigger really slow, it falls to half cock. And it's relatively easy to fix, and that's what we're going to show you in this video. But it's going to require us to take the sear cage back out of the gun. And what we're going to have to do here is the trigger bar glides against these pads and eventually hits this sear cage, and that pushes the trigger bar down, which makes the hammer disconnect and drop in double action. And so what's happening is these ramps are pushing the trigger bar down too soon. So we need to delay this by taking these ramps down a little bit, but it's not much. We're only probably talking about 1 or 2 thousandths of an inch, and they have to stay flat. And you want to make sure that when you look at this distance from here to here, it should be about the same. You don't want to take more material off one side than the other. So I use my knife sharpening stone for this. On the coarse side first, I just lay it flat, and I'm just going to drag it back and forth as level as I possibly can to remove material. This gun actually has quite a bit of timing issues, so I'm going to remove a pretty good bit of material this first time, and I just know that from experience. And what I look at a lot of times is I'm starting to get quite a bit of dust from the metal that I've removed, and so so that tells me that I'm probably pretty close. Then I'm going to swap over to the fine side, because I'm going to work this back down to a really good finish. So we're getting there. So I'm going to step up some more to some 400 grit sandpaper. Go really smooth. It's looking really nice. And we're going to step all the way up to 2000 grit. And I even like my 2000 grit. You can see how much I've been using it, and it's already got some metal in there. This stuff polishes so much better once it gets a little bit of metal dust in there. I'm just going to keep rubbing that back and forth a little bit to make sure that I get a nice smooth edge. So now you can see under here, that just came out really nice. You don't even see any of the lines. There's no need to polish anymore. Then I'm just going to wipe that dust out of there, blow on a little bit, we're good to go. And then we'll reassemble the sear cage, put it back in the gun, and try it, see if we need to do some more. Dropped it back in the gun, and so now we're going to pull the trigger in double action really, really, really slow. It doesn't fall to half cock anymore. That's pretty rare that you're able to fix that on the first try. Now, another thing that can go wrong when you do this by delaying the timing, I'm going to pull the trigger really slow. I want you to watch this decocker lever right here. You can kind of see where it lifted up just a little bit. What's happened is we've delayed it so much that now the trigger bar is actually hitting the decocker lever. So we're going to need to take that back out of the gun. Not going to hurt anything, but you can feel it. It's an extra click that shouldn't be there. So we're going to take that out, and then I'm going to show you how to fix that. So now we've got the sear cage back out of the gun again. Here's the decocker lever. This is the part that actually hangs down. It sits in the sear cage like this right here. And so what's happening is, as we're pulling the trigger, it's just barely touching the edge down here. So all you have to do is, I usually do this with a Dremel, but I'm going to just kind of knock this edge down a little bit. And that's going to allow the trigger bar to pass by it without hitting that edge. And just taking a little bit of material off there. This is just a triangle, little tiny diamond file. I would normally do this with a Dremel, but I'm not at my workbench. And that's about it. That's going to work really nicely in the gun and not going to hurt anything, because it's actually the other side that actually grabs the hammer. It's not going to hurt anything at all. Take that little piece off. So we'll reassemble everything and then check the trigger pull one more time. All right, so we got the gun back together again. Pull the trigger. No extra click, so we're good. We're going to put the slide back on the gun. And I'm going to tell you something else that you're not going to see in the video, but just with the Pro package in the gun, and it had a good trigger pull. It's much lighter than what it was from the factory, but squeezing the trigger, it was probably 7.5 to 7 3/4 of a pound. I guarantee you this trigger right here is it's got to be at least 7 pounds, and once the gun breaks in, it may be below 7, and had nothing to do with the springs. It's just because we got it timed right. So the double action's breaking in the right spot now. So it's just butter smooth.